Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello friends, welcome back to this lecture series of BSc with Chemistry, discipline specific elective of quantum chemistry, spectroscopy and photochemistry. In this lecture, we are starting with the rotational or microwave spectra. Friends, in order to understand this rotational or microwave spectra, we need to understand their energy profile. Now, if you look at this figure here, these orange lines which are indicated over here, you can see that the energy required for this rotational spectra is least, whereas if you look at this blue line, comparatively the energy required for this vibrational state and vibrational transition is much higher. And if you look at this black curve here and here, this is ground energy state curve for electronic state, and this is excited electronic state. So if you look at their energies, it is much higher than the rotational and vibrational. And therefore, actually, in that sense, if you see, if we need to keep the excitation so small so as to produce any transition between the lower rotational energy level to higher rotational energy level, herein among these orange line, the particular obviously this particular rotational transition, they belong to any one of the vibration level, either here or either here, anyone. And if we could keep this energy was at such a small level, the observed absorption spectrum in that case is known as rotational spectrum, and obviously the energy involved in it is very small, and say it is in the range of 0.1 electron volt to 0.01 electron volt, and therefore specifically it is also known as the microwave spectrum. Now, this spectroscopy in the microwave region is mainly concerned with the study of rotating molecules. And we all know that rotations are basically resolved with the three components of mutually perpendicular axis, and that too through the center of gravity or center of mass of that particular molecule. Wherever the center of mass of that particular molecule lies, it is governed by that. And also, though the moment of inertia along the three axes of rotation, we know always the molecule will rotate from this particular center of gravity point, and therefore based on the moment of inertia along the various rotation axes, the molecule needs to classify accordingly. You need to know whether the molecule is diatomic, triatomic or polyatomic, and its geometry. Now we need to see their classifications, which is a very vital parameter to interpret the rotational spectrum. Now, why do we need to know their classification? Say, for example, if I say for a linear molecule, my moment of inertia is given by this summation, that is mi ri square. Now, many a times for diatomic molecule, if I want to represent this mi can be represented as mu r square. So for a diatomic molecule, I can represent moment of inertia as I is equal to mu r square instead of this. Or if my molecule is polyatomic and there exist multidimensional axes, so in that case the general expression for this moment of inertia will be given by this particular kind of determinant, wherein all the nine terms are involved. Now this particular part can be simplified further if we could understand the geometry or the classification of the molecule, which is based on the geometry of the molecule. And therefore it is very vital, or it is very important in this rotational spectrum to understand, rotational spectroscopy, to understand the geometry of the molecule, or the classification of the molecules based on the geometry. So look at this particular part. So herein actually when a molecule has a permanent dipole moment, it generates an electric field, we all know. And this particular generated electric field, which can interact with the electric component of the electromagnetic radiation. This is what is the basic knowledge we all know. As a result, what happens? The absorption of radiation takes place in the microwave region, and hence the rotational spectra is also called as microwave spectra. Now, according to quantum mechanics, the rotational energy levels of a molecule are also quantized, we all know, similar to electronic energy levels, and hence the absorption of radiation in microwave region leads to the rotational excitation of molecule, which actually leads to the absorption of signal. And from this, the useful information about the bond length can be obtained from the spectrum or such a rotational spectrum. So most important condition for getting the rotational spectrum is that the molecule should have a permanent dipole moment is one of the basic condition. And hence the molecules like homonuclear diatomic molecule like hydrogen molecule or nitrogen molecule, etc., they cannot be studied using this technique, because there is no dipole moment, there is no electric field. I mean, there is no electric component of this particular molecule can be generated on rotation, and therefore their rotation spectra cannot be studied. However, the heteronuclear diatomic molecule like HCl, carbon monoxide, nitric oxide, etc., can be studied. You can further go for the polyatomic molecule. So these molecules, they can show the rotational spectrum in gaseous state, whereas, say for example, polyatomic molecules like water or ammonia, having more than one bond distances in their structure, so they can show this rotational spectrum. And while going for the rotational spectrum or interpreting the rotational spectrum, we need several moment of inertias along the each representative axis of rotation. So in fact, as per the 3 Cartesian coordinate axis, we need 9 components of moment of inertia that we have seen in our previous slide. These components reduced to 3 moment of inertia, that is IA, IB and IC in any of the figure you can see here. And therefore the polyatomic molecules in microwave spectroscopy are classified into different types of rotors, which we have tried to show here. So the classification of molecule based on their structures. So firstly, you can see the linear molecule. So for linear molecule, if you see that way, or this molecule, if you see, the main principal axis IA is equal to 0, and IB, that is vertical axis, and the axis which is perpendicular directly to this plane, which goes here. So they are not equal to 0, although. So this particular example is a linear triatomic molecule herein. You can take the example of linear diatomic molecule like HCl also. You can take particularly the example. The examples for say diatomic is carbon monoxide, this HCl, and triatomic molecules like CO2 or carbonyl sulfide, etc. All are the examples of linear molecules. Now there is other type, which is symmetric top molecule. Now in this symmetric top molecule, it is further classified into 2 categories. One we call it as a prolate type, which is this kind of molecule, say for example of rugby ball kind of molecules shape, and another one is oblate type. So in this case, it is a dish or saucer kind of structure these molecules are having. So prolate example is this CH3Cl or CHCl3. Both of them, they are the examples of prolate type of molecule. You can see from their geometry, this is the moment, this is one moment of inertia across this axis, other moment of inertia across this axis, and the other moment, the third moment of inertia across this axis. So in this particular type of molecules, the natures are like IA, the principal moment of inertia axis is not equal to 0, and the IB and IC, they are equivalent and they are also not equal to 0. So IA majorly in case of prolate they greater than 0, and in case of oblate it is less than, they are comparable. In one case it is greater, and in another case it is lower than this IB and IC. So this is what is symmetric type of symmetric top molecules, where in this ammonia kind of molecule they represent the oblate type of shape. The other type of molecules, say they are asymmetric top molecules. So when particularly all the three moment of inertia, they are not equivalent. Like if you see this water molecule, all the axes they are separate, and therefore when all the three principal moment of inertia they are different, that is your IA is not equal to IB and not it is not equal to IC. So in this particular types of group of molecules like water or methanol or vinyl chloride, if you see, so they are the type of asymmetric type of top molecules wherein we need to take care of more moment of inertia factors while explaining their symmetry or rotations. The another classic example is a symmetric top molecule, which replicates the sphere like methane. If you see, all the moment of inertia they are same. IA is equal to IB is equal to IC. From either side, you rotate the molecule, you will get the same configuration. These are all symmetry parts where you know very well. And when a molecule has all the three principal moment of inertia which is identical, it is called as a symmetric spherical top molecule. The example is like methane or SF6 is the classic example of this kind of class molecules. Now, based on their classification, the rotational spectra can vary, and their moment of inertia play a vital role. However, this for the case to study or to understand the rotational spectra, we will start with the linear molecules, and in this particular lecture we will deal with the linear molecule, particularly diatomic, and then we will extend our study to triatomic molecule, heteronuclear triatomic molecules, and we will try to find out what are its application. So now, we all have seen in our previous modules of quantum chemistry, we have seen the rigid rotors, the quantum chemistry of rigid rotor. Now, while dealing with the rotational energies of a diatomic molecule, we usually consider a model of rigid rotor. Now, what do we call it? Call it as a rigid rotor, wherein this bond length is rigid. Rigid. Now, let me clarify here that although in practice the rigid rotor or rigid bond in a molecule is not possible, but for the sake of understanding the analogy, this gross assumption has been made, which we need to correct at later stage, or wherein we at later stage discuss about the non-rigid rotor, wherein we incorporate the correction factor or distortion constant into the expression of rotational constant. We will see it. So we have seen its energy during the previous model of quantum chemistry. And in this particular model, if you see a rigid rotor with the rigid bond connected to two masses at two ends were considered, and both the masses are separated by a distance r. You can see here the distance r, and the reduced mass is mu. And it was seen that the rotational energy of a diatomic molecule is quantized, and it is particularly given by this equation number 1. So this particular part we have seen in our quantum chemistry lectures. You must be remembering this figure also. You must be remembering, wherein we have taken the example of heteronuclear diatomic molecule, wherein M1 and M2 are the masses of the two atoms which are taking part into the molecule. Now its energy is given by this quantized energy is given by this particular part, that is h square upon 8 pi square I j into j plus 1, where j actually we are representing now the rotational quantum number as j here for the sake of convention, and this I is the moment of inertia of the molecule. This j can take value as we know 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. And your I is moment of inertia. For this particular type of molecule, we can write down that I is equal to mu r square, where your reduced mass mu can be given by m1 m2 upon m1 plus m2. So we can calculate the reduced mass. So in this way we can find out the energy of this rotor. Now it is to be noticed here that the energy expression which we have seen of energy, that E is equal to h square upon 8 pi square I j into j plus 1, is obtained by applying the quantization condition of angular momentum. What I mean by this, that is, if we look at the expression of this equation number 3, wherein we have considered the energy expression by summing up all the three part, that is half I omega square, IA omega A square plus half IB omega B square plus half IC omega C square across the each coordinate axis, where we know that this IA, IB and IC are the moment of inertia along the respective rotational axis, and we all know that this L, that is angular momentum, is given by I omega, and where omega is your rotation frequency. And therefore, if I substitute that way, if I multiply I in the denominator and numerator and denominator respectively in all the cases, I get I square omega A square upon IA. So likewise, if I substitute the value of L here, so I get overall expression, overall energy expression as E is equal to half L square upon I. I have incorporated all the components of along IA, IB and IC. So my energy will be given by this particular part, where this capital L, we know that this is angular momentum, and we all know that this angular momentum and its quantized value is given by square root of j into j plus 1 h upon 2 pi. This is also not new to us because we have seen the quantized part, and therefore this angular momentum is given by this particular expression. So now the condition of quantization of angular momentum, what does it mean? It means that a diatomic molecule cannot rotate at any arbitrary angular velocity. It is not random actually, but it rotates with the velocity that leads to any of the quantized value of angular momentum. Now, what value you can say suppose if I keep value of j is equal to 0, so it will be say complete value will be 0, so L will be 0. Now if I substitute 1 here, so 1 plus 1 2, that is square root of 2 into h upon 2 pi. If I substitute 3 here, so 3 plus 1 is 4, 4 3s are 12, so it will be square root of 12 h upon 2 pi. Or that way if I substitute 2, so 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 to the 6, so it will be 6 square root of 6 into h upon 2 pi, and likewise it will go on. So the angular momentum quantization values will be varying with this particular formula. Now the angular momentum is a vectorial quantity, and hence it has a direction which will be along the axis of rotation, isn't it? Now also herein we have to note that the angular momentum vector cannot have any arbitrary direction. It cannot move on its own. There is a particular rule for it. So for its to know its arbitrary direction in space, we can have only few selective orientations as dictated by the quantization condition of the component of angular momentum or angular momentum vector, and that too along the respective direction. So usually by convention, this direction of external magnetic field is the direction of this particular rotation, and by convention it is represented as z direction, and such orientations are characterized by the magnetic quantum number, we can say ml or mz. So we have represented in our earlier lecture as ml, and it can actually have values like j, j minus 1 and so on up to 0, and then up to minus of j minus 1 and minus j. So say for example L is equal to 1, we have seen that the ml can have value plus 1, 0, minus 1. So it can have three values. Likewise, if you see this figure is also not new to you, we have seen. So the component, say for L is equal to 1, you can see their orientations and the magnitude also. We have seen that it is plus 1 h upon 2 pi, then 0 and minus 1 into h upon 2 pi. So obviously in this way, if I try to find out how many values this ml can have, this ml can have values 2l plus 1. So the degeneracy that way is given by 2l plus 1, or in this case 2j plus 1. So you can substitute the value. Say for j is equal to 0, there is only a single direction. For j is equal to 1, if you substitute, so there are three directions we can produce, like plus 1, 0 and minus 1. For 2, there are 5 directions. Likewise, the quantization and their direction, angular motion direction can be given. So this is the utilization or use of this particular role. This is the important role of quantization we have learned from the quantum mechanical approach. Now the energy expression which we have seen, that it is given by this h square upon 8 pi square I j into j plus 1. So if you see that way, the allowed rotational energies are given by this particular equation 1. And if I try to find out this energy in terms of wave numbers, that is in terms of centimeter inverse, if I try to find out, so it will be given by this nu bar is equal to E upon hc. So where c is the speed of light and h is the Planck's constant. So if I substitute in this expression, if I divide this expression by hc, I get this particular energy in terms of wave number. So h upon 8 pi square ic j into j plus 1, where c is the speed of light, and this energy will be in terms of now centimeter inverse, isn't it? And therefore I can say this is a wave number, or it can be further represented as this b into j plus 1. Now this b is important in rotational spectroscopy. So this b has value h upon 8 pi square ic, and this b is known as rotational constant. This constant is very important. Now this way we will be able to know that how this spectra is varying, how the molecules are making the transitions. So this rotational spectra is that way very important in rotational spectroscopy. So now this way, if I want to find out what is the difference between the two energy levels, or how the transition is taking place, what is the difference between that? So if I try to find out what is the difference in two wave numbers in transition, so I can find out delta E upon hc. So it will be, say, first level is J1 and second level is J2. So I can very well find out that B into J2 plus 1 minus B into J1 plus 1. So if I substitute this J2 is equal to J1 plus 1, I get particularly this particular expression of equation number 7. So that way, this equation number 6 is very important, because from this expression it becomes very clear that the rotational energy depends on moment of inertia and the rotational quantum number j. These are the two important aspects which we know, because see here I and the energy particularly on j. So B depends on I and overall energy depends on j. So we can actually find out the difference in energy between the two adjacent levels, which comes out to be particularly this, that is delta nu bar or delta E actually. So it is 2B upon J2, and this is in wave number. So therefore the splitting between the successive lines in this rotational spectra will always be equivalent to 2B, and this particular part, that is 2B separation part, is known as frequency separation. This is very important to know. Let us see this. Now herein let us see the differences between the levels in order to discuss the spectrum. This figure is shown over here. If you imagine the molecule to be in J is equal to 0, that is the ground rotational state in which no rotation occurs, and let there be incident radiation, so that upon absorption of this radiation the molecule will raise to J is equal to 1 state. Now in such case the energy absorbed will be given by this particular part, isn't it? This delta nu bar is equal to delta E upon hc, which is equal to B into J into J1 plus 1 plus B into J0 into J0 plus 1. So that is the higher energy level minus the immediate lower energy level. In this case, now in other words, if I want to say, an absorption line will appear at 2B centimeter inverse. If you see here, that is this will be given by 2B minus 0, that is equal to 2B centimeter inverse. Now if the molecule is raised from J is equal to 1 to J is equal to 2 level by the absorption of more energy, we will now have this particular part, and therefore the energy difference will be 4B centimeter inverse. Thus a stepwise raising of rotational energy results in absorption spectrum consisting of lines at 2B, 4B, 6B, 8B centimeter inverse and so on. Now while deriving this pattern, we have made an assumption that a transition can occur from a particular level to immediate neighbor, either above or below. In fact, the detailed application of Schrodinger equation show that for a diatomic molecule, we need to consider transitions only in which J changes by 1 unit and all other transitions are spectroscopically forbidden. This is called as selection rule, which we will see hereafter. Moreover, remember one important aspect for heteronuclear diatomic molecule, or rather heteronuclear diatomic linear molecule, that the rotation about the bond axis, this bond axis was rejected. There are two reasons for this. The first reason is the moment of inertia is very small about the bond. Therefore, if we look at the energy expression, the term of moment of inertia is at the denominator, isn't it? We have seen the equation 1 previously. And hence, in this case, the energy separation would be so high and widely spaced. That means the molecule requires a great deal of energy for raising the molecule from J is equal to 0 to J is equal to 1 state. And such transitions do not occur under the normal spectroscopic condition. Thus, diatomic, that is, and all the linear molecules are in the J is equal to 0 state for rotation about the bond axis. And they must be said to be non-rotating in this J is equal to 0 case, isn't it? The second reason is, even if such a transition should occur, there will be no dipole change and hence no spectrum will be observed. And that is what is given over here. This spectra explains this energy distribution and the spacing of the spectra as we go on a higher and higher level. So, based on this particular observation, or how the particular molecule is absorbing energy or how it can absorb energy, one has to understand the selection rule, because these transitions are governed by certain selection rules. What are these selection rules? So we can say here, for the sake of convenience, I have written all the aspects which are very important here. A molecule must possess a permanent dipole moment in order to exhibit the rotational spectrum. That is, its mu, that is dipole moment, cannot be equal to 0. Otherwise, rotation spectrum will not be appearing. In other words, a molecule must be polar in nature in order to interact with the microwave radiation. This is one of the very basic criteria to obtain the rotational spectrum of a molecule. Similarly, the specific relationship for the rigid diatomic molecule is delta J is equal to plus minus 1. That means the value of J changes only by unity. It cannot change like delta J is equal to plus minus 2, or it cannot step out from 1 to 3 or 0 to 2 or 1 to 4 or 2 to 4. It cannot go. And the positive value sign is for the absorption and the negative value is for the emission. However, delta J is equal to plus 1 for operative is actually operative in rotation spectrum, because in molecular spectroscopy we are concerned about the absorption and not emission, and therefore we call it as delta J is equal to plus 1. That means the transition can only occur from J is equal to 0 to J is equal to 1, or J is equal to 1 to J is equal to 2, and so on. And it cannot be from J is equal to 0 to J is equal to 2 or so on. And therefore, one would get the details of this selection rule using the quantum mechanical approach. What is this quantum mechanical approach? This particular part, this mu A is equal to integral of psi A mu psi B d tau, where we call this mu as a permanent dipole moment of the molecule, and psi A and psi B are the initial and final rotation energy states from this particular function. Now, particularly this integral of equation 8 is known as transition moment integral, and it can split into the components of dipole moments across x, y and z axes. Now, if any one of the integral out of these across three axes, any one of them is non-zero, then the transition is allowed, or else it is forbidden. And therefore, the Schrodinger equation in this particular case shows that for a diatomic molecule or rigid rotor in this case, and of course in absence of any electric or magnetic field, the only transition in which changes by one or unity that is delta J is equal to either +1 or -1 are allowed, and all other transitions are forbidden that way. And this is what is the use of quantum chemistry here. And therefore this selection rule becomes delta J is equal to +-1. In addition to this, we can say that only heteronuclear diatomic molecule can show rotational spectrum and not the homonuclear diatomic molecules, because due to presence of dipole moment in heteronuclear case, and in homonuclear case there is no a dipole moment, and therefore it cannot give you a spectrum. Also, it is seen earlier in quantization that in an electric magnetic field which varies from +J to minus J, it gives the value 2J + 1 of the degeneracy, or the number of rotations, number of separations in the respective direction. So this way, this selection rule is very important, and this delta J is equal to +-1 and delta J is equal to +1 specifically in this case becomes the selection rule. And another important criteria is that molecule should be polar in nature, and it should have good dipole moment. That is what is the selection criteria. Now, the another important aspect that one needs to consider here is that intensities of spectral lines, because it is going to give you the idea of what is the fraction of molecule which is having a particular energy state in the rotational level. So the intensity of a particular line basically is determined by the number of molecules undergoing the corresponding transitions from J is equal to 0 to J is equal to 1, or J is equal to 1 to J is equal to 2, or so on. And we know that more is the number of molecule undergoing that transition, more will be the intensity of line. And also we know that as we go to higher and higher energy levels, the population go on decreasing and decreasing, because it will require energy to go higher and higher. And therefore the relative population at any of the level with respect to the ground level will be given by Boltzmann distribution. What is Boltzmann distribution? This equation number 9 express the Boltzmann condition. We know very well Nj upon N0 is equal to e to the power minus Ej upon Kt, where J represents the higher energy level, rotational energy level, and N0, this 0 represents the ground state. So we need to know what is the fraction of population which is available at jth level as compared to ground state energy level, whereas these terms have got their usual meaning. Now, it means that the energy goes on increasing as the number of molecule go on increasing, and so the intensity of line should also go on decreasing continuously. I mean, number of molecules at higher energy level should go on decreasing. However, each of the rotational level is degenerated, we know, and their degeneracy is given by 2J + 1, and hence in actual practice the total population of energy level at any particular total population at any particular level of energy is given by this particular equation, that is population Nj is proportional to this particular part, degeneracy into this Boltzmann distribution, isn't it? And therefore with this proportionality expression we can say that, assuming for a moment that this this particular equation 10 will give you this particular expression, that is Nj upon N0 is equal to 2J + 1 e to the power minus Ej upon Kt. Now this is going to give me the population at any of the jth level as compared to ground state energy level. And therefore, assuming that the moment that equation number, this particular 11 in this form is a good approximation. If you see from this expression, we have taken this equation 11. I guess you must have got the point that the value of energy has been kept here, because we all know this energy which is given by B into J into J + 1 upon Hc, it was there, and therefore it is actually B into Hc J into J + 1 upon Kt we have substituted here. Okay. So assuming for a moment that this equation 11 is a good approximation of a true spectrum, And hence we can find out the maximum intensity by treating the equation number 11 as a continuous distribution. So that way, if I want to do this, I need to differentiate this particular part with respect to J, because I want to find out maximization. And therefore, if I that way try to differentiate this Nj with respect to J, I get from this expression, I get this expression, equation number 12. And we know for maximization maximum population state, this is going to be equal to 0 because it is maximum at this particular level, and therefore dnj by dj is equal to 0. So if I equate this particular equation to 0, I can find out the value for j, and that value for j is actually the rotational energy level which contains or which possesses the maximum population of particles, or it is a maximum population state, rotational energy state, and this is given by the square root of kT upon 2 hcb minus half. This is very important. Using this expression, we can find out what is the population or what is that particular energy level wherein the maximum population is available. In spectroscopy, this has got lot of importance, because that this way you can find out where is the state which possesses the maximum energy, maximum particles at that particular energy level. If I try to plot this Nj upon N0 with respect to J, that is rotational quantum energy level, so you can find out at any particular temperature, it depends on temperature obviously, at any particular temperature it will give this kind of value. That means, say at this particular energy level, the population is maximum, or at any particular other temperature, the other curve may show that at higher temperature, the higher energy level may contain the higher number of population, and so on. So this particular distribution actually is governed by this particular formula, isn't it? And therefore this particular formula Jmax gives you the opportunity to find out what is that rotational energy level which contains the maximum population. This is one of the important outcome of this particular discussion of intensities of spectral line. You can all see here also, in this way, if I try to go from j is equal to 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10th level, and you can find out the energies, that is 2b, 6b, 12b, 20b, isn't it, with respect to formula, and wherein you can actually find out what is their difference. You can find out with respect to each of the difference and the separation of the spectrum. So here in 4b, then 6b, then 8b, then 10b, likewise then 12b, and their differences spectrum will give you, see, for 2b, 4b, 6b, 8b, 10b, 12b, and their individually the difference between their spectrum is 2b, 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 2b. So ideally, if we consider the rotor is rigid, so I need to get this separation spectrum at 2b, and their intensities will vary according to this particular pattern. This is simply an approximation. Now, moreover, it is another important aspect that we need to consider, as I said earlier, that rigid rotor is our assumption in order to just to understand the analogy. However, in practice, the rotors are never rigid. Bond length cannot keep constant, because there are vibrations even at ground state energy levels. And therefore, in case of the rotational spectra of rigid rotor, the spacing between the successive lines usually remains same, because bonds are rigid. We have considered it as rigid, and that comes out to be 2b per centimeter. However, as we know that the rigid bond length is an assumption, and it has no real significance, because in actual practice the bond length cannot be constant. In fact, all the bonds are elastic in nature, and hence it compresses and elongates as like oscillator. And because of such centrifugal effects of the moment of inertia, usually this moment of inertia increases with the rotation energy, which causes rotation energy to be somewhat closer to the j value. As you go on increasing towards the higher j values, this separation will be lower and lower and lower, and it will approach towards the j values. That means, as we go on go towards the higher energy rotation energy quantum numbers, the spacing between them will become little closer and closer and closer, further closer, and therefore their eigenvalue in such cases may be employed by we can say this equation number 13. So you can even see this pictorial representation is given over here of this particular equation. So we have seen this energy is given by h square upon 8 pi square I j into j plus 1. However, this is for rigid rotor. However, we know that no bond is rigid, and therefore for actual bond one has to correct this with this particular centrifugal distortion which is involved, and therefore this particular part is because of the centrifugal distortion which comes due to the elongation and compression kind of oscillations. So this can further be written as in wave number, if I try to write down this Ej upon Hc, like b into j into j plus 1 minus d into j square into j plus 1. So this d actually is the centrifugal distortion constant we can call, and its value can be calculated. If you divide it by Hc, you will get from this particular term, if you divide it by Hc, you can get this value of d h cube upon the remaining part, and wherein this particular k is the bond stretching force constant, that part particularly has to be taken care of. And that way, if I try to see this particular spectrum, wherein if you see at lower rotational spectrum, you will not see any significant change in their energy level because this constant is very small. However, as the j value increases, because this particular part is involved here, you can see, and as j value goes on increasing, this particular thing, it will come down. It will see, as you go from j is equal to 3 to j is equal to 4, or from j is equal to 2 to j is equal to 3, see, you will see the little appearable decrease in the level of energy. Then if you go from j is equal to 3 to j is equal to 4, yes, significant decrease. And as you go on higher and higher, say 7 to 8, you can see this much higher or significant decrease. So when I talk about j is equal to 10th level or j is equal to 8th level, yes, it makes matter. And therefore you can see in this graph also the intensity versus all the quantum numbers, you can see the shift towards the actual j values. So however, this spectrum remains equivalent to 2b here and 2b here. However, it shifts towards the earlier j values, and this is what is the significance of understanding the non-rigid rotor, and this is what is the actual case. We can find out why there is a shift in the spectrum. Now, during the application or during the study of application of this particular rotational spectroscopy, one important aspect that one can learn is we can see the effect of isotopic substitution and what effect it will take on the rotational spectra is very interesting that way. And not only it is interesting, but we can find out its applications are that way very crucial. We can find out the various parameters from its application, like we can find out the bond length of the molecule if I know the rotational spectrum of two isotopes. Now let us try to understand this particular concept. What is it? So the molecule having different isotopes of the same elements, obviously they show different rotational spectra. Now why do they show? Because say for example, I take example of HCl and DCl. Now in this case, why it will show different spectra? Because both of them, their masses are different, they are isotopes. Now in case of isotopes, the same element, their masses are different, and therefore so is the case of your frequency of vibration and rotations, because mass has changed. So basically the change in mass of an isotope lead to different moment of inertia, and hence there is a change in rotational energy. That is, in other words, I can say, since the moment of inertia is different, the rotational constant B is different for isotope. B value will change, and therefore I can actually equate two B's for the isotope of the same molecule. So let us take an example of isotope of carbon monoxide here. We can see. So if before that, if you see this, in passing from this C12 16, I mean therefore carbon monoxide, that is 12C or 13C. So these are the two isotopes. So in case of this, there is an increase in mass, and hence there will be decrease in B value. So in case of C13, there will be decrease, and this dash line will indicate the spectrum for C13O. So that means your B in case of C12 is greater than this C13. So this particularly this observation can be studied, and from this particular study we can find out the important parameters using this particular behavior. Say for example, if I take the spectrum, the example of say carbon monoxide as shown here. Now from this particular point, what I can say is I can find out the exact weight for the isotopic species from this calculation. How we can see in this particular example. In this example, say the rotational spectrum of C12O16, that is this C12 carbon monoxide and C13 carbon monoxide, they exhibit the line spacing at, say suppose in case of C12 carbon monoxide, it shows the line spacing of 3.84235 per centimeter or centimeter inverse, and their C13 carbon monoxide shows 3.67337 centimeter inverse. If I take the ratio of two these rotational constants B upon B dash, I can actually take their values, substitute by their values. So ultimately I get this mu dash upon mu, and I can actually calculate, see the value for B is this. Now this particular lines at spacing, so this is spacing, and how much is the spacing? Your spacing is 2B, and therefore what is the value of B? It is actually this 3.84235 divided by 2, and therefore we can substitute this particular value of this 1.92118 upon 1, that is in case of B dash, and this is in case of B. If I substitute, I get their ratio as 1.046. Now not only this, I can calculate the reduced mass of carbon monoxide, because in both the cases we know the molar masses and atomic weights. So I can find out, I can substitute their values. So mu dash upon mu, if I substitute these values, and if I say this value of in case of C13 carbon monoxide, in case of C13 carbon, I can substitute this value of m dash for its mass. So if I substitute, I can solve this expression, because I know mu dash upon mu is 1.046. If I solve this, the expression or the value for this particular m dash comes out to be 13.007, which is in very good agreement with the value which is obtained by several other methods. So this is one of the very important aspect which comes out from this particular effect of by studying the effect of isotopic substitution. So you can actually find out what is the precise atomic weight if you know the two isotopes, and if you take the rotational spectrum of two isotopes, you can find out what is the exact weight of the isotope. This is one of the important application of this rotational spectrum. Likewise, you can find out the bond length. Now, in particularly finding out the bond length of diatomic molecule, this is that way an important application. I can utilize this expression, and I can actually find out how to calculate this bond length using the expression. To proceed with this, say we have an example that let us find out the bond length of this nitric oxide. And if you know the rotational constant is given by 1.166 centimeter inverse, and the reduced mass is given by this, so I can actually use this expression for this rotational constant B is equal to h upon 8 pi square IC. If I substitute the particular value, that is I is equal to h upon 8 pi square BC, from this particular formula, I can find out the moment of inertia. I get moment of inertia from this, so I can substitute I is equal to mu r0 square, that is this particular bond length. So if I substitute here this value of this particular moment of inertia and the reduced mass, if I substitute, because I have the value for reduced mass, so I can find out the bond length. Similarly, if I want to find out the bond length of HCl molecule from the microwave spectrum, which we know that which is separated apart from at 20.80 centimeter inverse, so we can know the molar masses of H and Cl, that is 1.008 for hydrogen, and the 35.5 gram per mole for chlorine. If I substitute it, I know the separation value, that is 2b is equal to 20.8 per centimeter, so it is 2080 per meter, that is meter inverse, and therefore b value will be divided by 2, and therefore b is equal to 1040 meter inverse. Now I can calculate m1 and m2, their molar masses in kgs. I can calculate this. I can substitute this value. So I is equal to h upon 8 pi square IC. If I substitute the complete values, actually I can find out this I is equal to mu r0 square. So r0 that way can be found out. So the bond length in this case is given by 1.29 angstrom. Similarly, I can go further to find out the bond length of polyatomic molecule. In our previous example, we have found out, or we have seen the determination of bond length of heteronuclear diatomic molecule. Now, if we take the example of this carbonyl sulfide OCS molecule, if you can see the geometry. Now, looking at their sizes, it is expected that its moment of inertia or center of gravity lies here. So if center of mass lies here, now this point is very crucial. So I can find out the distances of each of the atom from this particular point. Say the position of oxygen atom from this particular center of gravity is, say, suppose RO. This carbon atom is situated at distance from the center of gravity is, say, suppose RC, and the sulfur atom is situated at distance RS from the center of gravity, and their interatomic distances, like between C and O, is given by RCO, and between carbon and sulfur it is given by RCS, and between these are the two unknown distances we need to find out using this. See now how we can utilize the rotational spectrum for its determination. Now for this, if I consider that this is your center of mass, I can predict these particular equations, that is mcrc plus moro plus is equal to msrs. So looking at this particular geometry, I can obviously write down this, and correspondingly moment of inertia also I can write down like I is equal to mcrc square plus moro square plus msrs rs square. So this particular, both the equations, they are important that way. Now from this geometry which we have described just now, I can actually write down this RO is actually RCO plus RC, and also this RS is RCS minus RC. I can write down obviously, because see, I want to find out this distance, so this will be RCS minus RC, and likewise this RO will be given by RCO plus RC. So I have these two expressions given by equation number 17. Now I need to reduce the number of variables obviously in order to solve it, and therefore if I substitute this equation 17 in 15, so what I'll do, I'll substitute the value of RO from here and RS from here. So if I substitute, I get this MC RC plus MO, this in bracket, instead of RO I write down now RCO plus RC. See, instead of RO I have written down RCO plus RC. And likewise, instead of RC I have written down RCS minus RC. That is, instead of this particular length I have written down RCS minus RC. Just a mathematical rearrangement. That way what we have done, we could find out, or we could reduce the number of terms. Now if I see this, I can take out these terms of RC as a common term as a outside the bracket, and I can get this MC plus MO plus MS. So this, in other words, this is nothing but the total mass of the molecule, and which can be given by capital M. So this capital M into RC will be equal to this particular expression, and therefore I can find out the value of RC, that is MS RCS minus MO RCO upon M. Now look at this, very interestingly, this RC is now in the form of RCS and RCO, these two bond lengths between this carbon and oxygen and between this carbon and sulfur. Now if I substitute this 17, this length, in 16, that is moment of inertia expression, I can get this particular type of equation, that is I is equal to MC RC square plus MO into RCO plus RC square, and plus MS into RCS minus RC square. So if I particularly solve this particular expression, And if I substitute this value of Rc, which we have found out in equation 20 here, and if I substitute this value over here, although the equation becomes little lengthier, it's not that way complicated. It becomes little lengthier, and after solving a few steps, I can actually find out what is the value of this I in this particular term. So the much complicated equation has now taken a little bit simpler form, and this particular form is important to us. However, even if this form is particularly simple, you can see here that this both the bond length, that is RCS and RCO, are involved in these particular terms. So in order to find out these bond lengths, I need one more such equations containing some such terms, similar terms in its expression, so that I can form two simultaneous equation, and then I can actually find out what is the solution for it, and then I can find out what is the value for RCS and or RCO. What can be done? Now we can take help of rotational spectra. Now, if I assume that instead of this particular particular part, that is carbonyl sulfide with sulfur 32, I can take use of, or I can get the help of this particular isotope of carbonyl sulfide, wherein the sulfur 34 is considered. Now the mass of this sulfur has been changed. So out of all these factors, what is changing? This ms dash is changing now. However, the bond length between this is not changing, therefore the bond distance have not changed. And since bond distance is not changing, we can only make certain changes, like instead of this ms, it is ms dash. See, everywhere, wherever there is ms, we can put the mass of 34 sulfur instead of 32 sulfur. And if I substitute it, I get this I dash value, and this I dash is the moment of inertia for this carbonyl sulfide molecule with 34 sulfur. And this particular equation number 22 is the moment of inertia value for, or moment of inertia expression for, carbonyl sulfide with 32 sulfur molecule. When I get both the expression, I can actually solve both of them, and I can get the results for RCO and RCS. So when I get this particular equation, so see, at one end I have written this this one part of carbonyl sulfide with 32 sulfur and carbonyl sulfide with 34 sulfur. So both the expressions, that is equation 22 and equation 23, are in front of us, and therefore we can obtain both I and I dash from the microwave spectra or the rotational spectrum for this 32 carbonyl sulfide and 34 carbonyl sulfide. And from this two simultaneous equation, actually I can calculate the unknowns RCO and RCS. So if I particularly substitute the values of B, and from this particularly I can calculate I and I dash from the rotational spectrum, and I can literally calculate the values of RCO and RCS. A few of the substitutions and few of the isotopes of the similar same molecule and their different combinations have been studied, and it is actually seen that this particularly, if I say see here the pairs of isotopic molecules we have written, like see carbonyl sulfide with 32 sulfur and carbonyl sulfide with 34 sulfur ka pair agar, if we put a pair of these two, 32 and 34 sulfur, I get RCO as 1.1647 and RCS as 1.5576, which is in good agreement with the literature value. However, the other isotopes pair, if I take that, take the example of this particularly say carbon 12 and carbon 13, herein if you see carbonyl sulfide with 12 carbon and carbonyl sulfide with 13 carbon, look at this, the RCO value will give you 1.1629 and 1.5591. Herein, in this case, again the similar value, similar changes have been done, and in both the cases, with these pairs of isotopes, we have got these different values, isn't it? In case of this 16 oxygen and 18 oxygen also, we have seen the similar examples. Now, if you see these values, there are little bit deviations from each other, and these small differences in bond lengths are caused by changing in isotopes are basically due to the 0 point vibrations, whose amplitude basically depends on the masses of the atoms, and therefore the measured bond lengths they change upon the isotopic substitution. So that is what is the 0 point vibration effect. However, if we try to take out their values or bond lengths, if you try to find out the RCO and RCS, they are pretty good agreement. They are all in good agreement with the literature values. So this is how we can use the rotational spectrum. In addition to this, like this carbonyl sulfide molecule we have studied, we can actually study its application and to find out its application, or to find out the bond lengths between the in case of HCN molecule, we can find out the bond length between carbon and hydrogen and carbon and nitrogen, wherein carbon nitrogen contains a triple bond and carbon hydrogen contains a single bond. We can find out their bond length as well using this rotational spectrum, wherein also we get the bond lengths in good agreement with the literature values. And therefore, this rotational spectroscopy is important in this case also, wherein we can find out the bond lengths of molecules. Now, not only for the diatomic molecules, triatomic molecules, or linear polyatomic molecules, we can say, see, as the number of molecules, or as the number of atoms contributing in a molecule, they go on increasing, the complexity in the equations will go on increasing, and therefore the equations at the later stages for moment of inertia will go on becoming complex and complex and complex, and therefore their solution will require certain computers at certain stage. However, it is not that way difficult now. We can definitely calculate. Now, as we have seen in case of diatomic heteronuclear molecule like HCl even, or carbon monoxide even, we have found out the bond length. We could find out the atomic masses of the upon the isotopic substitution effects. We can actually find out the bond lengths of the asymmetric molecules like water using the rotational spectrum, which is very important, and that way it is really not that difficult in understanding if we utilize this tool particularly of rotational spectra in determining the bond length and masses of the isotopic substitution, or masses of the isotopic substitution in the molecules. So this way, this particular rotational spectra is useful. We will continue looking for its further. We can actually continue looking for its application, and we can see lot many numbers of examples of this rotational spectroscopy. However, right now, limited to our scope in this particular part of rotational spectroscopy, we are stopping here, and we will continue in our next lecture with the vibrational spectroscopy. Thank you, friends. This is the end of this particular lecture. Thank you.